I empower people to overcome their fears of credit cards.
You get your debt paid down.
People that don't know you can pay your loans with your lines of credit. Even if that line of credit is higher in interest rate, we show them the formula for calculating amortized interest.
All right, so we're here with CJ with Velocity, and just a pleasure to have him here. And we're going to talk about personal finance. We're going to talk about credit cards. We're going to talk about debt. And so I just thought this would be a nice partnership. We talk a lot about blue collar business, service based business, because that's what I'm in. And so anytime we can just offer additional information to help our viewers, just be more successful and better manage their finances. And so, CJ, I'll let you just kind of tell us a little bit about what you do on your channel and why you chose to talk about finance. And yeah, so tell me a little bit.
Absolutely, Adam. Thank you so much for having me on, man. And I love what you're doing. I shared that little story about my sister and her dyslexia and how she overcame that. Man, you're all about empowerment. So I want to absolutely honor you for what
Thank
you're
you.
doing. Yeah, absolutely. So I actually do kind of the same thing, but on the finance side. I empower people to overcome their fears of credit cards, overcome their fears of the lines of credit, and I teach them how to use it correctly. A lot of people don't know that you don't have to have a mortgage, that you can replace your mortgage. It's news to many people. There's a lot of people that don't know you can pay your loans with your lines of credit. Even if that line of credit is higher in interest rate, and, at first people are like, what in the world? Why would you pay a debt with a debt? But it's all about the math. And we get into that, right? We show them the formula for calculating simple interest, let's say. And then we show them the formula for calculating amortized interest. And then their eyes are opened and they are empowered to make the correct decisions when it comes to, paying off what they need to pay off: car loans, student loans, home loans.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Do you get into talking about once you kind of cross over that threshold? Okay, you get your debt paid down. Then what? Do you go much into just talking about the next steps after getting out of debt?
It's something you should ask that because I remember being told, I think it was back in 2017, what's next? After you get all the debt done with, did you know, CJ, you're still at 0? And I said, "Oh, that's right. I'm still on the ground." And he said, "Well, it's a good thing that now that you know how to pay off your loans, you can get some more to build leverage, to build assets, right?" And so there's a difference between debt and leverage. Debt is buying consumables, right? Buying liabilities. Leverage, of course, is buying assets, and that's what we want.
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind is a book I read many years ago when I was a kid, and I read it every couple years. Is Rich Dad Poor Dad. He obviously talks a lot about that type of just those ideas and concepts. How has those types of books, and if not that book, what books or material has kind of influenced your thinking around this?
Oh, man. So, Killing Sacred Cows, 1 and 2 by Garrett Gunderson, man, and the whole Wealth Factor family kinda transformed my thinking on the whole debt thing. Because I grew up, listening to people that said, "Hey, cut up your leverage, cut up your credit cards. Don't do it. Don't do it." And I was like, "Oh, okay," and, when I came across, this individual, Garrett Gunderson, and others, like Robert Kiyosaki as well, I saw another aspect to capital where you can take that capital, you can get a loan, you can get in debt, but that debt can pay you. And that kind of transformed my thinking from a foundational level. So this was before the channel. This was before I even knew about velocity banking. It kind of transformed my thinking on, okay, now that I'm working this job overtime, different things, now I can take this money and actually grow it. I can buy an asset that pays me. And I was introduced to the concept of passive income. And so we're going to be sharing that actually pretty soon on the channel on different ways you can get passive income as well.
Yeah. So with debt to help grow your wealth, I'm assuming you're talking about leveraging, you're talking about, like rental properties would probably be an easy example, something that a lot of people have heard of. Is that the type of things that you think are good ideas or that you've seen success in building wealth using debt to help, you know, e- enable you to do more?
Absolutely. So when I talk about, and I'm glad you brought that up, I'm definitely talking about education foundationally. At first, I'm talking about education, making sure we know what to do before we do it. And of course, yes, yes, rentals are definitely something that is in the wheelhouse so that you wouldn't have to work to necessarily get that cash flow. Of course, there's some initial work in the beginning. Of course, there's the work throughout it, right? But we're talking about work on a higher level. So you're absolutely correct. 86,400, right? When I mention that number, people are like, okay, why did you mention that number? That's how many seconds are in the day. And so are you going to spend your seconds you know, doing something that perhaps you don't want to do? Or are you going to spend your seconds fulfilling what it is you maybe came here to the earth to do, regardless of your beliefs? What's your destiny? What would you like to do? And I'll take this saying from one of my mentors, Jim Rome. He's passed away now, but he said, "What are you becoming
Yeah.
in what you're doing? What are you
Yeah.
becoming? It's all about what you are becoming." And so I take that into account as well. As we talk about, the rental income, we're talking about making sure that our investments are in the right place. Of course, rental income's not the only way,
Yeah.
but the investment structure, and this is very important. The investment structure is more important than the investment itself because with the
I
structure,
like that.
you could lose and still win.
Yeah, no, I love Jim Rohn. He's got a very unique voice. Um, yeah, I actually, a family member of mine worked for him for many years and had a close relationship with him. And yeah, just a phenomenal guy. I love his concepts and teachings. He's a rock star. Uh, yeah. No, I love that. So it'd probably be safe to say you're more focusing on the education, like you said, and understanding the principles, and then apply those principles to whatever vehicle you want to use to maybe build wealth. Maybe you're interested in real estate. Maybe you want to do e-commerce. It doesn't matter what you do to get to the wealth, but understand the principles and understand how money works. Would that be kind of a good summarizing?
Exactly, exactly. It's all about education. I'm reminded of Napoleon and how he fought his wars, that he just kept winning and winning, winning, winning. Well, he would sit at the dinner table and would eat, but would be thinking about the battle and what he was going to do. That was kind of just bred in him. He was just that type of thinker. And so I endeavor to make sure that people realize, hey, when this is in you and this is second nature, you can look at a deal and go, no, don't like that one
Yeah.
because it doesn't match what you already know a deal should look like, right? And the same goes for paying off debt, So, and that's what I try to bring in to the teaching, that education aspect. If you know it, then it's second nature, like walking, like talking, and that's what we want people to get to.
I so agree with that. I think, just when you have something deep in your knowledge base, you can just you can be very conversational with the topic. And if you really know it, you're not having to have I have a notepad here with if a thought comes to mind, I can note it down, but I'm not reading off a script. I'm a my 9 to 5 is a painting contractor. So if you ask me painting questions, I don't have to pull out something. I know it. I can just rattle off anything you need to know. I've been doing it for 20 years. I know it really well. And so for that is so true. If you understand the principles around something, you begin to recognize opportunity. I think it's in Think and Grow Rich. They even talk about, you know, like reading your goals and rehearsing kind of the things that you want. There's no real magic, in my opinion, of like just reading it. But I think it just puts it deep in the subconscious. So when those opportunities come up, you're able to jump on them quickly because you're aware of it. Would that be kind of what you're alluding to?
Yes, exactly, exactly. So, like, when you're painting now, it wasn't like when you started out, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And so it is with paying off debt, so it is with looking at a deal, it's not gonna be like when you first start out. Of course, when you first start out, you're gonna have the bumps, you're gonna have the bruises, because you didn't know, but
Yep.
once you know, man, it is on to the break of dawn. So,
Yeah.
yes.
So if let's say let's talk about a couple of different scenarios. So I'm a father. I have two kids, 19 and 15. So if you were talking to a young person, a lot of young men, um, both of our contents on YouTube a lot. So a lot of young men. It seems like the larger demographic on YouTube. And so if you were talking to a young person, man or woman, what would be some of the starting advice you would offer to help them be financially successful? Maybe they're starting from 0 with no debt, or maybe they've got some loans, maybe they got a car payment, a little bit of credit card debt where they went to college and, did XYZ. What is some of the first principles that you would encourage people to really dive into?
Absolutely. So this part, I absolutely am a proponent of writing everything that you have down.
Yep.
Right. We live in the AI world now, and boy, it can be a humongous help, but it can also be a humongous hurt because it can be a crutch that perhaps can lead to some missteps. Let's say, okay. So what we want to do is we want to write everything down that we have: income, debt, expenses. Then we want to step back and say, all right, where can I classify? Okay, so put these expenses in classifications. There are four classifications of expenses. That is productive expenses. That's the insurance, different things like that. You want to protect your wealth. Okay,
Yep.
so the productive expenses are actually going to be investments. Okay, the productive expenses is investments. The protective expenses, that's going to be the insurance. All right, protecting the wealth. That's where the insurance lies in. And then what we're doing is we're classifying our lifestyle expenses. If you like beans and rice, that's good. If you're going to do that and you're going to wait until you're, I don't know, 90, 95 to go to Ruth's Chris, listen, there's no judgment from me. Okay. But you don't have to do that, right? If you can go ahead and allocate for those lifestyle expenses and then destructive expenses. We want to classify those destructive expenses. And then we want those to be as low as possible or eliminate all of them. What are destructive expenses? Well, I mean, maybe the membership at the gym that you don't use. Maybe it's the book membership, or whatever membership that maybe you don't use. Hulu membership, maybe that's something that you can say, okay, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take this cash flow and I'm going to put it into a productive expense. And so once you start doing that, get in the habit of doing that, it'll become second nature. And you'll watch your savings or your checking account grow. And it'll be exponentially because someone is on the back end working that, whether it's an investment or a business.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, would that be kind of the equivalent of just budgeting, kind of, but not just budgeting, but also breaking that budget into categories so you can more productively see where you're spending your money and manage that? Would that be a good way of thinking about it?
Exactly. Plus, it gets people curious as to, why you do that.
Yeah.
you know and you can see the whole logic behind it is to get you inside of a mind frame where it does become second nature. Maybe a lot of people don't know about that, but once
Yeah.
they know, it can become a part of them, and now they're classifying without even thinking about it. Oh, that's a destructive expense, we're not going to use that. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
productive expense, let's do that. And
Yeah.
then once you automate, so after you've done the four expenses, let's do some automation. Have you ever heard of like auto pay?
Oh, yeah.
Like you're paying, pay automatic. Well, listen, what's wrong with paying yourself?
Yeah.
What's wrong with paying yourself $50 a week? Guess what $50 a week adds up to? It adds up to 2 month that you have, and it's automatically coming to you. It's like you're
Yep.
paying yourself, right?
Yep.
And so what are you gonna do with that $200? Well, do you need a debt paid down that you're going to increase that cash flow? Well, let's go ahead and pay it down so that we can capture that cash flow.
Yeah. When it
Yeah.
comes to if you were talking to someone who maybe's already accumulated some debt, maybe they're starting career early in the career, what do you have any advice for people who are kind of seeking out help or advice for career direction? I do want to circle back to AI because I am interested in some of that. It's an inevitable kind of part of our life. It's going to be more so in the future, but just for a young person or maybe someone who's in the middle 40s, 50s, well, what thoughts do you have around career choicing or choice and how to kind of think through some of that?
Man, that's a great question. So the career choice, I would automatically want people to be educated on getting ahead of the curve. We are in the middle of a humongous disruption.
Yeah,
But if you can get ahead of this, it would absolutely prove to benefit you not only in the short run, but in the long run, because it's not 1980 anymore. Okay.
yeah,
Not 1960s. I mean, the landscape as far as careers have turned out, it's changed and it's
yeah,
changed dramatically. Perhaps you want to think about, hey, is an online business better for me, especially in the AI sector? Is that something that I see myself doing? What do I like to do? You can monetize that. I actually tease my wife and I'm like, hey, the first person that gives us any money, I mean, it can be 1 penny for this sour cream pound cake that I make. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it into a business. Because, when you have multiple streams of revenue, you start thinking differently. You're no longer, "Oh, man," you're no longer in the accumulation mindset. So keep in mind, you can have multiple streams, of income now, multiple
yeah,
streams. Because if you spend $200 maybe on a pair of J's or some shoes or a purse or whatever it is, right? Then that $200 would be coming back, the next month or the next week. It's a whole different mindset.
yeah,
So, think about those multiple streams of income that you can make money while you're sleeping.
mhm,
Think about that. I would say as you're, going to work and you're thinking about your next career, the 2 things would be AI, how can I get ahead of that?
yeah.
And then how can I get multiple streams of income?
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, I always, eh, so like I said, my son's 18 and he's getting into career. He's not going to college, and my brother's an entrepreneur as well, and so he's been around entrepreneurships, or entrepreneurs, and so seeing him try different things, he started a newsletter business. He manages actually some of my Dyslexic Hustle stuff, and he's actually working with a consulting company now, and so I've always been kind of like, just see what hits, see what works, see what you're good at. There's a guy, Scott Galloway. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but
Man.
yeah, he has a statement. He's like, don't follow your passion, but follow your talent and like see what you're good at. Like, and you might just become passionate about what you're good at. I know, yeah. My son was not a sports kid. He did not like baseball. He did not like he's like, "Wow, why do I wanna throw a ball?" Me and my brothers, like, we grew up playing baseball and all basketball, all the things, and so me trying to force him into, like, playing sports that he wasn't interested in never really made sense, but he's really passionate about this other stuff or really talented with this other stuff, and it become a passion of his, and so,
Right.
yeah, it's interesting to see, it can be discouraging, I think. I'm in a college town here in Boulder, Colorado, so I have a lot of friends that are younger in college, and there is some I think there's a lot of opportunity, more opportunity than ever in some ways, but then it's also to be really kind of discouraged at the same time when it comes to career choices. But anyway, just curious about some of your thoughts around that. Um,
Yeah.
Going back to some of the debt and paying off debt. So we talked a little bit about kind of the younger, categorizing. So maybe someone's on maybe right in the middle, and they have a pretty good handle on their finance, but they're just kind of doing the status quo, just kind of paying off the 40, not 40, 30-year mortgage. They got the car loan, maybe a little bit of consumer debt with credit cards or this or that. I'm assuming you would kind of start in a similar place, categorize, but you talk a lot about like how to pay your mortgage off quicker and how to use lines of credit. And we don't necessarily have to go into details because you do really detailed videos. And I would encourage everyone to go watch those and see those and dissect those. But like, talk to me high level about some of that. And if you're just sitting at a coffee shop talking with someone, what are some of the kind of the pointers and jumping off places that you would give people?
Absolutely. So, and I gotta give credit to Dale Clark. He's a rocket scientist, and he came up with this formula that just works. And it's the formula of the cash flow indicator. When you have multiple loans, what we want to do is we want to categorize those loans in order of inefficient loans to efficient loans. The inefficient loans are the cash flow suckers, right? Especially the amount that you got, the amount that you receive is kind of disproportionate to the amount your minimum monthly payment is. And so we want to make sure that we get rid of those cash flow sucking loans. How do we do that? We're going to put it through the cash flow indicator. Loan balance divided by minimum monthly payment, it's going to give you a number. If that number is between 0 to 50, you're in the danger zone. Okay. We want to make sure we get those paid off as quickly as possible. The closer the number is to 0, the quicker you need to prioritize paying that loan off so you can free up the cash flow that comes from that loan and allocate it to another debt. All right. If
Just
it's
to make sure
51.
And to make sure I'm understanding, so you're saying if you have like a debt that's you have a debt, but it does generate some cash flow, but just not a lot, you wanna eliminate that quicker.
Right. So a debt, like let's say a car loan, right? Your $50,000 car loan, you have maybe $739 is your payment, right?
Yeah.
What you're going to do is you're going to place that $50,000 on top. It's the numerator, divide it by that minimum payment of the $739. That number there is going to be between 0 to 50, 51 to 99, or 100 and above. Okay.
Gotcha.
So we want to make sure that we're paying off all the danger zone loans. Now,
Gotcha.
if the number is between 51 to 99, right? And we're talking about consuming loans. We're not talking about leverage, right? Where it's an asset, right?
Gotcha.
51 to 99, you can restructure that loan.
Yeah.
You can ask for a lower interest rate, right? You
Yeah.
can even refinance, right?
Okay.
But if it's 100 and above, like most mortgages are, then we don't want to prioritize that as much as, let's say, a danger zone loan.
Gotcha.
And so then we want to do that. We definitely want to do that first.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I interrupted you, but so what after you kind of go through that, then what would be kind of the next?
Absolutely. So a lot of people, they look at that interest rate and it puts them in fear, man. I mean, so that's where we come along with education and start empowering them. Let's not look at the interest rate anymore. Okay.
Mhm.
Listen, 7%, 10%, 30%. Don't worry about that. What we need to focus on is time and balance. Time and balance is going to do more for us than looking at the interest rate alone. And this is what I mean. Why is it that $500 a month going toward a payment is not as good? And I'm talking about $500 extra a month going towards the principal. It's not as good as $250 every 2 weeks. Why is it? Why is it not as good? Why is the lower number, that $250 biweekly, better than the $500 a month? Because with the $250 biweekly, you have 13 full payments.
Yep.
With the $500 a month, you have 12 full payments.
Yep.
So what we're doing is we are hitting the principal because
Mhm.
any extra amount, you don't wanna allow the bank to just split it up any way they want to. You want to hit that principal. So you're gonna deploy that capital towards the principal, and the more frequent you do it, the more you're going to save in interest.
Yep.
But it's
Yeah.
the same amount, right? But you're doing it more frequently, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
Because 26 payments equals 13 full payments.
Yep. No, I love that. Yeah, I've heard that 'cause, a lot of people talk about that in regards to their mortgage, make an extra payment or things like that, but you don't hear people talking about that as much with, like, a car payment or things like that.
Right,
Because
exactly.
that extra payment is going directly to principal, not going towards the interest.
Yes,
Yeah.
is
Ugh.
going towards the principal. Well, why do we wanna do that? Well, we wanna do that because the interest is feeding off of what? The principal.
Yeah.
See, there's a relationship there, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's a host and parasite relationship, actually, right? Because the interest is feeding off the principal, and the bigger the principal, right, the bigger the interest, right? The interest dollars. But the smaller the principal, the smaller the interest dollars. That's why we want to make sure that we are hitting the target, which is the principal, as much as we can and as fast as we can and as frequently as we
As
can.
well, I think and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's kind of like Warren Buffett has always talked about compounding interest is the greatest tool, and he's talking about it, for building wealth, and when we're doing the reason that banks loan you money is because 'cause they're making a lot of money. And so there's a reason why when you drive into a big city, the biggest buildings are bank buildings. It's because they made a lot of money. And so you're kind of you're shortcutting their money making opportunity by the compounding interest, and you're taking back some of that so that you can try to get back to zero, and then you can start using compounding interest to make yourself wealthy rather than make the bankers wealthy. Would that
That's
be
right.
yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. And to maybe the people that are like, well, I could never do it. Remember, folks, this actually works with even negative cash flow. We don't know what we don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't know what we don't know. And when you are in a forest or, you're in a place where you don't know, how you're going to get out of it. Well, one thing we do know about that situation, and that is we cannot solve the problem with the same mentality that got us there. So all you got to do, right? Get out of the people that maybe aren't helping you out when in regards to the finances, and get on the road towards that debt elimination. Get on the road towards that passive income if that's
Yeah.
what you want. Because once you get on the road, you've already won.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta get around people that are gonna elevate your thinking a little bit, and then also you need to get around people that I grew up very poor. I grew up, my mom was a single mom, 4 kids making, less I think I said 20 in one of my videos. I think it was actually like $17,000 a year. I was like, "We were poor." It's so and so but getting around people in today, you know how old are you?
Yeah, I'm 44.
41. Okay, so I'm 41. So, all right, so we're kinda same. So, like, when we were in high school, like, YouTube wasn't a thing. Like, it wasn't easy to get this type of information, and so even if you don't have a personal relationship with someone, I mean, you got people like yourself who are teaching, and so if you seek out this information, there's lots of good information out there about elevating your thinking, and you don't have to take everything hook, line, and sinker, as they say. You can say, "You know what? I really like that. That aligns with kind of my worldview or kind of how I want to do things." And maybe there's this other financial guy that kind of has a little piece that I like about that. And you can kind of but just get educated so you kind of understand because math is math. Math, it doesn't care what your education is. It works the same no matter what. Use it to your advantage.
Right, right. So that's interesting, man. Because my mom told me a story about how she was, a little girl, man, and she would try to find nickels on the sidewalk and on the road to help her mom, out. And my mom was told by our granddad that a woman's place is not in the military, right? Well, guess what she did? She went to the military, retired. She's living high in the hog now, man. But I remember that story, man, and how she had like hangers from her shoes and sticking out and stuff like that. And, I was like I was really touched by it, and, man, I gotta commend you, man. It's amazing where you've come from to what you do now, man, you know what I mean? What was that motivation for you, to, like, start the painting, business and to get into painting business?
So, my father died when I was 14, and he actually was he was a very successful painting contractor. Through just some unfortunate events and some of his own demons, when he died, pretty much lost everything, and so left my mom with just kind of holding the bag. And she was a school teacher at a small private school, not even an accredited teacher, so kind of like a preschool type teacher. And then, she was a teller at a bank, making minimum wage, just above that. And then she put herself through nursing school, and then she became a manager, in the nursing world. And then she ended up getting into, my brother is e-commerce, and he, brought her on board, and she adapted and learned technology and did all that. So she's a fighter. And so seeing her fight and just not quit, also me being dyslexic, I always tell people crippling insecurity will motivate you to do a lot, if you harness it the right way. And, I didn't want to be poor. I didn't want to be poor. And I got married when I was 19, been married 21 years, and so congratulations. Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't want to be poor. I didn't want to be unsuccessful. And I felt like, I had great people around me, but in my head, I was thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm going to have to work harder than everyone else. And sometimes when you just got your head down, you're just plowing through, you look up and you're like, well, the field's plowed. Now, I'm a hiker. I'm say I'm a hiker. I like to hike, and if I'm looking and I'm always thinking, "Oh man, I still got 5 more miles to go," that's discouraging. I just look down and I'm walking. I'm just looking 6 feet in front of me, and then I'll get to the spot and I'll look and enjoy. But then I look back down and I'm just going hard at it. So I think part of the motivation aspect was, yeah, insecurity and knowing that I had no safety net, and if I didn't do it, nobody was gonna do it for me. And I had good people around me, and I know not everyone has that, and so I do feel fortunate in that aspect. But, that's why the channel's called The Dyslexic Hustle, is because there was a lot of hustle, still a lot of hustling. I was hustling before I came in to do this, podcast, and, I was out doing estimates before this, and when I'm done, I got a couple meetings, about painting. And so, yeah, it's just always, when I lack in knowledge, I make up for in hard work.
Yes. Man, that's where it's at.
And
Yeah.
but I'm always trying to learn, and because I see a lot of people just working really hard, and I'm like, "Man, if you'll just pause for a minute, learn a little bit." And that's what I love about what you're doing. It's like, learn a little bit about the finance, learn what the steps are. I don't spend a lot of time watching, like, mindless TV, or even, I'm listening to financial podcasts, business podcasts, business books, and I'm just focused on being a good parent, being a good spouse, and making money.
Yeah. Yeah. Good, man. That's
Well,
awesome.
what about yourself? Because I mean, it's not, what's your motivation? Because I mean, all of your videos are very like teacher. I mean, I feel like I'm sitting in like a college course learning about finance. I wish more classes would teach this kind of stuff. What's been your motivating factor to help people?
So my motivating factor to help people was, when I was in my apartment, um, man, I was paying credit card with credit card, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Man, is this gonna be, what I'm all about?" And I remember there was one time I had and I was so proud of this moment, man, I had paid my car off, you know what I mean, and everything. I had done everything that the financial guru said to do, man, and my car broke down. The engine had I think it was a blown gasket or something like that, so I took it to, the car maintenance place to get it fixed. I thought it was fixed. 2 days later, it broke down again. Well, I had saved $9,000, $9,000, and in about 2 weeks, it was gone, man. It was gone. At that moment, I said, "Okay, I don't wanna make the same mistake twice because I worked hard for that $9,000
Absolutely.
and for it to just disappear on a car, and, oh, by the way, when I got it fixed again, it still didn't work, so I still had to finance another car, right? So, but, I thought about it and I said, "There's no way I can continue in this cycle." The accumulation method is not for me. I've got to start earning cash flow. So that's when I started going to school. I used my GI Bill because I was in the military before. I used my GI Bill to go to school here and in Cochise College and, got an associate's in business, and then I started to kinda spread my wings in the business world. So we went to into real estate investing, got our first fix and flip, that was fixed, pretty successfully. We appreciate, everyone that was involved in that. But again, that started with education. But the motivation was never to be in that place again where you can save up your hard-earned money, and then it can all go away in 2 weeks or less, and you have nothing to show for it. Now you have to work instead of you get to work. That was my motivation. And man, it got pretty bad, man. It got to the place where I had to I felt like I had to rap for the, project or excuse me, not the but what's the person property manager. I had to rap for the property manager just to stay in the room, man, and just to stay in the residence. So, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. So I was like, "Oh, man, never again." So, what did I do? I started, because I was so excited, man. I had just learned velocity banking, just learned it. And I was so excited, that I went to an office, that they let me borrow, and I started just teaching, man. Matter of fact, one of my first videos, that's the one that went viral, and I just started teaching. But what people don't know about that video is that I had absolutely nothing to my name when I made it. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Yeah, yeah. But I was so excited. I didn't care, and I didn't know about monetization, you know what I'm saying, on YouTube or anything. I had just because I knew that once I got the concept, it was off. It was off to the races. Yeah, I'd never have to worry about money again. I could talk about something else, you know? So my motivation was to have other people that were in my place or worse never have fear about, "Oh, no, where's the money coming from?" Right? Where you
Yeah.
can use your lines of credit to your advantage versus your disadvantage.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like taking back control.
Yes, there you go. You can
Yeah.
take back control, and it was my weakness, man. Cause get it? Paying credit cards with credit cards, that's not exactly what a finance teacher should do, right? And so that was my weakness, but that weakness became a strength simply, just like yours, what other people call, right, is it becomes a strength, so
No, I love that. I think, weaknesses, struggles, I mean, no one wants them, but honestly, you have to turn them for opportunities and you can learn something from it or you can just repeat it. And I tell even our team and our business, it's like, hey, like if there's a problem, let's figure out why is this if it happens once, it's like, okay, I kind of see. If it happens twice, it's like, whoa, we have a broken system. What do we need to fix? I don't want to deal with the same thing twice. And so let's fix it. What do we need to address? And I think we maybe as a business owner, it's easy to think about that in a business context, but we need to do that personally. Fitness, sleep, food, everything. It's like we want to be healthy, we want to be financially secure. in, we in my situation, my wife works with me in the company, but she just kinda she does a lot of admin, a lot of bookkeeping. She does a lot, but I'm responsible for kinda steering the ship and driving it. And so, you really have to learn, you have to be willing to, recognize when you're insufficient in certain things and not be insecure about it, but learn to overcome those things.
And, do you feel like a certain pressure, having to have that role of being, to steer the ship or whatnot? And how do you take care of that? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely. I've, kinda a little on topic, but out of the finance thing a little bit, but, I've been listening to multiple podcasts recently about, like, relationships and the dating crisis and all these different things, and it's interesting to hear, like, what women think and guys, and when I'm listening to these guys talk, it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's, like absolutely, that's how I see it." And it's like, if I was to lose my ability to provide for my family, I lose a lot of value. Like, it's a very, that's a very hallmark type thing in my of what I do. It's like, if I can't do that, if I can't protect my family, if I can't provide for my family, like, that really takes a hit on my self-esteem and honestly of what I spent my life kinda doing. So, I think navigating it a couple ways is the headspace is hard. We moved to Colorado 7, 8 years ago, had a modestly successful business in Florida, painting space, and we did well, but it wasn't nothing like what we have now, and we took a big risk. We uprooted, shut down the business, started a new business in a place that we've never lived, didn't know anyone, and started from scratch, and best decision I ever made in my life. And, yeah, there was no safety net. So I think the question was is like, how do I handle what's the pressure? Yeah, I mean, it's relentless, the pressure. And you have I think something that's really good for me is, and I think, um, gosh, I forget their name. I think it's the Diary of a CEO. They've done a couple, podcasts about, like, masculinity and relationships and different things, and the guy I mentioned earlier, Scott Galloway, was on there with another girl, and they were talking about this, and I think it's so true. There's a weight, that we have of as, kind of the breadwinners of a family. But one of the things that's been really helpful for me, and they actually encouraged it, and we're seeing more of this, is having small groups. And you kind of see this in religious communities, in a church or synagogue or whatever. But having a community is really what it is being able to have conversation like this. We don't really know each other that well, and so we're getting to know one another, but we're able to relate because we have a similar backstory and we've had hardships and you're able to talk about it and just being open and transparent. Don't whine. No one wants to hear you whine about it, but let's talk about it and find solutions. And I think I've had the benefit of having specifically other men who are in similar walks. I have a brother who's in the same kind of space as I'm in as far as being an entrepreneur. That's been really helpful. And, you know, a friend of mine, one time we were talking and we were talking about just like, you're a parent and you're a husband and you're running a business and, it gets hard sometimes. And he's like, yeah, and it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. And it's like, yeah, it's just hard. Yeah. And there's nothing to take away the hardness. It's like if you're running a marathon, when you get to the end, like it's just hard. You're tired, and you want to quit, but you can't. You just have to keep going. And so really, I think what the community does is like, hey, yeah, like you're not the only one that's having hardship. You're not the only one that feels that pressure. That's a normal thing to feel that pressure, but you have to stay consistent, push through the pressure, get to the other side and figure out what it should look like. And, a little bit of uncomfortableness is a good thing. Like put your hand on a fire. Like that uncomfortableness is telling you you should move your hand because if you don't, you're going to get permanent damage. And so that uncomfortableness can be a really good thing. And you sometimes you just need a little perspective because when you're isolated, you can feel like, oh, I'm just going to kind of get in my hole and woe is me, my life is difficult, my life is hard. And it's like, well, my life has been harder than some and easier than others, but, everyone just kinda has their own path they have to kinda navigate and get through, and so I think community, and having some thoughtful people around me has been a great thing. Um,
Yes.
Seth Godin, notorious blog writer, not everyone can get a mentor, but we can all have a hero. And, we may not, I mean, I don't have access to a relationship with, name your favorite CEO, but today I can watch a lot of their stuff online and I can learn from them and they can be my hero. So I may not know Superman, but I can find him online.
Yes. Oh, man, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's
But
perfect, man.
how about you when you were kinda in those darker moments, you saved up this money, you're feeling on top of the world, and you get that gut punch, and you're spending all the money, and you have to take out another loan to get the car, and you just feel like, "The hell with this because this isn't working, and I'm just gonna" you know, who knows all the different thoughts that you have, but what was kind of the motivating factor? How did you kinda navigate those difficult times?
Yeah, man, I had to pivot. I had to pivot. I had learned even before that that it's not going to be any different if I continue on in the same vein. And I knew something had to change because that part right there was something that it kind of brought me to reality. And there's nothing like reality that can be your closest guide in what you should do next, right? So I knew that after that moment of, saving up that money, $9,000, and I got a story about that actually, with Bitcoin, but that $9,000 that I saved, once I lost it all, I was like, "Okay, alright, now, I cannot do that again." So I'm actually leaving the mentality that I had because I know that there is something else. Even if I have to sacrifice my credit score and I have to sacrifice my money. Now, I know that's kind of like, "Oh my goodness, it's anathema. Why would you sacrifice your credit score?" Well, because I didn't want to be in that situation and I did not know what to do next. So, I never want to have, an accumulation mindset only where, "Oh, I'm good with, 9,000. I'm good with 10,000. I'm good with 12,000." I'd rather have that amount coming in each month, right? Even if it's $500 coming in each month, I have to stack the cash flow, because when I spend it today, well, I'm getting it back tomorrow, right? Okay, all of the $5,000 is gone this month. No worries. I'll have that coming in next month and the next month and the next month versus having $1,000,000. And I actually got this from Justin Donald, from a lifestyle investor. He said some of his clients, they've done $5 million exits, $20 million exits and above, but they are the most fear prone people that you can meet because that's all they have, right?
Yep,
And they don't have that cash flow coming in. So you've saved up the 5 mil, the 10 mil, right? But each time you spend that money, now you have 400 or 4,900,000.
yep,
And they're looking at the money do this, mhm, instead of this, right?
yep,
So we want to, not that accumulation is bad, but we want to make sure that our horizons are expanded to where, if we do this, right? The accumulation, you keep
yep,
taking and keep taking,
yep,
that's okay because we still have this
yep. Yeah,
and we can pass
cash
that
flow.
along.
Yeah, cash flow is king. You gotta, like you said, when you just have that nest egg, it's nice for a moment, but then 2 months, 6 months, 2 years, that nest eggs just starts to dwindle down, and then you're like, "Well, I hope I don't outlive my money." Right. Exactly. I don't necessarily wanna live forever, but I don't wanna have to be counting the days.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so something someone said to me is, CJ, you have to have more of a process oriented strategy, meaning the business has to run without you. You can
Yep,
teach them, like Ray Kroc isn't running McDonald's, right?
yep, yeah,
I mean, he has the whole system is running
yep,
itself. That's the goal. If there had to be a goal, right, then that's the goal. Let's have a system that runs by itself. All you have to do is peek in every once in a while, say good job to teenagers, and just head out, And so that's yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. A lot of times people are, even in my industry, in the construction industry, like, oh, well, I have to do everything myself. I have to cut every board or put every paint tile or a roof tile or paint every door. And it's like, I just can't find good help. And it's like, I McDonald's, a multi-billion-dollar industry, and all the fast food restaurants, more or less. And there's some, high quality managers and things like that in there too. But the primary workforce is teenagers. It's like, I mean, you find solutions. No one's if you find solutions. Yeah. Uh, perfect. No, perfectly. But couple things you said that I wanted to comment and have you elaborate on. That you talked about the thinking, and I know one thing that Jim Rohn has talked about in his different lectures, and a lot of people have repurposed it too. But it's not necessarily um, the money you make in the process of becoming a millionaire or whatever it is your target, but it's who you become. And because it's why so many wealthy people can rebuild that wealth multiple times is because they've learned the principles, which is what you're teaching about finance and whatnot. And that's why I think it's so important that people learn about it, because it's not necessarily about a destination. I know that's kind of cliche and overused, but it really is about what you learn during the process. It's why I could take my business that was in Florida, shut it down, start over, and make it even more successful, is because of what I learned in the process. So I just wanted to comment on that. I think it's so important, that the mindset and the teaching that you're highlighting is really is important for, because it's not just a singularity thing that you're learning. It's that deep knowledge that we talked about earlier, because it compounds their building blocks, and you're just kind of building a foundation, building that a little higher. And the bigger the foundation, the more you can learn, the more resources, the more tools you have to use. So
Absolutely. Man, that's
now,
perfectly said.
now you talked about, I want to ask about Bitcoin, but before we talk about Bitcoin, I think you said that you referenced like the reality, or being real, and just having that rawness. Um, Elaborate on that a little bit, because I so relate to that.
Yeah. Okay, so there was a time where, because I told you about the $9,000 fiasco, right?
Yeah.
At the time, Bitcoin was just coming out. I think it was 2010 or something, 2012, right? And I had put $25 in, and I just wanted to dabble with it. Well,
Yeah.
the following year in 2013, I only put $25 in, but in 2013, I took $125 out. So I sold the Bitcoin, $125. If I had taken, and I'm telling you, man, this is crazy. Every time I think about it, people are like, and I share the story, people are like, oh,
Yeah.
if I had taken the $9,000 that I blew on fixing that car and just left it there, man,
Yeah.
do you know how much I would have? I do. Right now, $5.5
Wow.
million.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you don't know what you don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't know about Bitcoin, and knowing about an investment is much better than the investment itself, because the truth is, there are no bad investments, just uneducated or misinformed or uninformed investors, because people are making money whether the market is up, sideways, or down. It's all in what you know. And in being real, it's sharing stories like that. Like, I don't know everything, right? I didn't know that the credit limit would get cut down, right?
Yeah.
What do you do when that happens? Well, we start restructuring things. We look at the clients, all of what they have, and we don't stop there. Why? Because it's the knowledge that's going to keep us thriving. You don't need, you don't need, you have to live without a need of anything, right? A little line of credit you don't need, savings account you don't need, IRA you don't need. What you do need is this, right? How do we create wealth? Because before savings account, people were creating wealth before savings accounts, right? Whether they were salesmen or whatever it is, it's just a different tool, right? And so that real aspect, man, of just being like, you know what? Let's look further into this. I don't have the answer now, but I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
And we do, right? If there was, like I use an app called the Money Max account. I just put the income and the debt, the expenses in. It shows me, okay, if you want to pay off this car by that time, let's do it like this. And it shows me a process. Not everybody has that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when we slow down, get to their level, and then take them up.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, on the Bitcoin, I don't have any holdings in Bitcoin, but I know many people who I don't know any like multi-millionaires from Bitcoin, but I know people that have made hundreds of thousands in it. And yeah, it's you're talking about. I'll just make my thoughts on it is if you're doing things like a Bitcoin, my encouragement to people would be don't take your whole life savings and throw it in there and think that it's just gonna jump, because, some of those things you don't have any control over, right? And so,
Right.
but, I my son was wanting to mess with it, and I said, "Put it don't put any more money into it that you wouldn't be comfortable laying in the middle of the floor and catching on fire, because that might be what happens. It might double, it might triple, it might 1,000,000,000 X, but it is a little bit of a gamble. And so I'm, historically, my brother's a little bit more of a risk taker than I am, but I like the boring and basic when it comes to like the lists and stuff. And it's funny because people will talk about they're like, because I'm an entrepreneur and I have my own business. It's like no money is guaranteed. The only money that's guaranteed is the money I go out and make. I'm like, yeah, but I trust my ability to go out and shake the trees and make some stuff fall more than the whims of XYZ,
Yeah.
So I think a little bit of wisdom around some of that stuff is also needed. And so I wouldn't beat yourself up too much because it could have gone the other way.
It's true. That's very true, man. And guess what? Would I have oh man, this is something. Would I have the impact on people? I know there was one comment that said I was $250,000, $250,000 in debt. Now I have $1,000,000 in assets. CJ, keep doing what you're doing.
That's
You
awesome.
know? And there are some things that are way more valuable in life than money. You know what I mean? Things like that, because that's a person who's gonna teach their children now,
Yeah.
and that generation, I had a hand in that, you
Yeah.
know, just like you do, you
Yeah.
had a hand in.
Super impactful, yeah. I mean, and yeah, I think that's important, like, what you just highlighted is, like, it's not just, like, money's the most important thing, but money can't buy happiness, but it's also nice when you don't have to be worried about where you're gonna buy your kids clothes or,
Right.
if they're gonna cut the power off or, if you have a family member who has a financial hardship that you can say, "Hey, I can help with that. I can cover that expense. I can help you make your next mortgage payment until you get your new job." And those things are empowering. But that person you talked about who now has that larger net worth, like they're probably gonna change their family tree because of what they've learned, what they're gonna teach their kids, and that stuff is invaluable. It's very important, and I love one of the reasons. So we talked a little bit about the dyslexic hustle, and just hustling and working hard. But honestly, the real driver on talking about dyslexia is I grew up very, very insecure about dyslexia, and because I can't read well. I mean, if you were to hold up a book, I mean, my daughter in the 3rd grade could read better than me. Now, there's tools and ways around that now, and it's easier for people to excel in certain things now. But in the 90s, that wasn't the case. And so when we started having kids, I was like, I didn't want my kids to feel insufficient if they were dyslexic because it's hereditary. My son turned out not to be dyslexic, but my daughter did. And so it was really important to me that there be a proper education and an understanding of what dyslexia is. Um, for her and the people in her life, because last thing I want is my daughter to feel insecure or less than and then start seeking affirmation in unhealthy ways and those types of things. So, and finance is also one of those things. I mean, what is it? Money, finance, religion, politics. These are all the things that we shouldn't talk about. And that was the taboo we shouldn't talk about. But honestly, I think it's the things we should talk about the most because
Yeah.
they impact us the most. And it's like, yeah. So, man, I so appreciate you taking the time and just kind of sharing your vision and your heart and all the different tools. And I would encourage everyone, there's just dozens and dozens, hundreds of videos about finance, and you do really deep dive educational style teachings on these topics. Um, are there any other things that people can get from you or stay connected? What's the best thing for them to do? We'll link it in the description too. But tell us the best way to communicate with you and learn from you.
Absolutely. So it's the velocitychannel.com. It'll absolutely go to the email, and I'll make sure that you get connected, and it'll be most likely to me or one of my team members, but I'm the one that does the debt elimination roadmaps. I'm the one that makes sure those newsletters, go out to people, giving them tips on how to pay off different debt obligations, man. I mean, student
Yeah.
loans, we have the car loans, the home loans, uh, even payday loans. Okay. And I actually have a proof of 960% interest. Yeah, on some of these payday loans, man. And so, but we get them paid off, man, because we don't focus on the interest, as well as much as the principal. And that's the secret. But of course, we want to stay away as much as we can from the payday. Well, bottom line is we'll help you get it all paid off. So
Help them wherever they are. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, man, thank you so much. So appreciate your time. We'll link to everything in the descriptions and we'll have to do this again. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Adam, keep doing what you're doing, man. Empowering people. God bless you.
All right. Bless you. Thank you, Sarah.
All right. All right. Bye-bye.